When humanity refused to retreat, the mask fell. Then the war began. The ships appeared on a Tuesday morning, hanging in Earth's sky like silver tears frozen against the blue. 12 vessels, each one the size of a small city, positioned themselves over the major capitals of the world. They made no aggressive moves. They simply waited. Dr. Marcus Webb pressed his face against the window of his office at the University of Cambridge. As a xenoarchaeologist, he had spent his entire career studying the possibility of alien life. Now that possibility floated 3 miles above London, silent and impossible to ignore. "They're beautiful," his assistant Sarah whispered beside him. Marcus nodded, but something cold twisted in his stomach. Beautiful things in nature were often the most dangerous. The first contact came exactly 24 hours later. Every television, radio, and internet connection on Earth carried the same message simultaneously. The being that appeared on screens worldwide was tall and graceful, with pale blue skin that seemed to shimmer like water. Its eyes were large and dark, and when it spoke, its voice was like music. "People of Earth," the alien said, "I am Ambassador Cathara of the Zephyrian Republic, speaking on behalf of the galactic hegemony. We come to you in peace and friendship." Marcus leaned forward in his chair. In the background of the transmission, he could see other aliens, some with scaled skin, others with features that seemed to shift like smoke. All of them appeared calm and benevolent. "We have watched your species for many years," Kithara continued. "Your potential is great, but your world faces dangers you cannot yet understand. Wars between your nations, pollution of your environment, the risk of destroying yourselves with your own weapons. We have seen this pattern before, on many worlds." The ambassador's expression grew sad, almost parental. "We offer you salvation. Beautiful worlds await you in the outer systems, planets with clean air, fertile soil, and no history of conflict. Under our guidance, humanity can grow and prosper without the violence that has marked your past. All we ask is that you accept our protection and allow us to relocate your people to these paradise worlds." The transmission ended, leaving the world in stunned silence. Within hours, the debate began. World leaders gathered in emergency sessions. Religious figures proclaimed everything from the end times to divine intervention. Scientists like Marcus found themselves thrust into the spotlight, asked to explain the impossible. "What do you think, Dr. Webb?" asked the BBC reporter during his third interview of the day. "Should humanity accept this offer?" Marcus chose his words carefully. "It's certainly generous," he said, "but I think we need to ask more questions first." That evening, Marcus received an unexpected visitor. General Sarah Chen knocked on his door just after midnight. He knew her by reputation, one of the youngest generals in NATO history, known for her sharp mind and sharper tongue. "Dr. Webb," she said without preamble, "I need your expertise." "At midnight?" "The aliens gave us a week to decide. Every government on Earth is ready to say yes. I think that's a mistake." Marcus let her in. "Why?" Sarah pulled out a tablet. "I've been analyzing their transmission. Look at this." She showed him a freeze frame of the background aliens. "Notice anything?" Marcus studied the image. They all look comfortable, like they've done this before. "Exactly. This isn't first contact for them. It's just another day at the office." Sarah swiped to another image. "And look at their technology. Those ships aren't exploration vessels. Look at the hull design, the weapon ports they think we can't see." Marcus felt that cold feeling in his stomach again. "You think they're lying?" "I think they're not telling us everything. And I think you're the only person who might be able to figure out what they're hiding." Over the next 3 days, Marcus dove into every piece of information about the hegemony that Kithara had provided. Official histories, star charts, cultural data, all of it painted a picture of a peaceful alliance of species working together for the greater good. But the more he studied, the more questions arose. There were gaps in the historical records. Mentions of species that appeared once and then vanished from all subsequent documents. References to integration protocols and population management that were never fully explained. Sarah visited him again on Thursday night. Any luck? Marcus rubbed his tired eyes. Maybe. Look at this. He pulled up a star chart on his computer. According to their records, the hegemony has assisted 47 different species over the past 1,000 years. All of them were relocated to suitable worlds for their own protection. And I can't find any current references to 31 of those species. They just disappeared from the records after their relocation. Sarah leaned back in her chair. That's not good. It gets worse. I cross-referenced the coordinates of their homeworlds with our own astronomical data. Every single one of those planets shows signs of massive industrial excavation, strip mining on a planetary scale. They stared at each other in silence. We need to tell the world leaders, Sarah said finally. With what proof? Gaps in alien databases? Suspicious mining operations on planets we can't even visit? They'll say we're paranoid conspiracy theorists. Sarah stood up. Then we better find better proof fast. The vote is tomorrow. The next morning, representatives from every nation on Earth gathered at the United Nations. Marcus and Sarah sat in the gallery, watching as speaker after speaker rose to praise the aliens' generous offer. The vote was scheduled for noon. At 11:47 a.m., Marcus's phone buzzed. A message from his assistant. Check emergency broadcast, now. Marcus looked up at the screens around the assembly hall. They were showing a news report from Australia. What appears to be a malfunction in the alien vessel over Sydney has revealed its true structure. Satellite imagery shows that what we thought was a peaceful exploration ship is actually a massive drilling platform, complete with planet-cracking equipment designed for large-scale mining operations. The assembly hall erupted in chaos. On the screens, the images were unmistakable. The beautiful silver ship had partially opened, revealing machinery clearly designed for planetary destruction. Ambassador Kythera materialized in the center of the assembly hall, her holographic form flickering slightly. Her musical voice had an edge to it now. A minor technical difficulty, she said smoothly. Our ships are equipped for many purposes, including planetary development projects. This changes nothing about our offer. The Secretary General of the UN stood up slowly. Ambassador, our scientists have raised concerns about the fate of other species you've helped in the past. Kythera's expression didn't change, but her eyes seemed to grow colder. All species we assist find their proper place in the galaxy. Some adapt better than others to their new circumstances. What happened to the Valdari, the Kethrin, the Morlocks? They found peace. The silence stretched for long seconds. Finally, the Secretary General spoke again. Thank you for your offer, Ambassador, but humanity's answer is no. We will remain on Earth. For the first time since her arrival, Ambassador Kythera smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. How unfortunate, she said softly. We had hoped you would be reasonable. The hologram flickered and vanished. Outside, the 12 ships began to change. Their silver surfaces darkened and shifted, revealing the true shape of their hulls. Weapon ports opened like hungry mouths. Marcus grabbed Sarah's arm. What have we done? Sarah was already pulling out her phone, speed dialing military contacts. The right thing, she said grimly. Now we better figure out how to survive it. Above them, the first energy readings began to spike as the alien ships prepared for war. The first attack came at dawn, 3 days after humanity said no. Dr. Marcus Webb woke to the sound of his apartment building shaking. Outside his window, London's skyline was lit up with strange green lights that pulsed down from the alien ship like deadly rain. Where the lights touched, buildings simply vanished, not destroyed but dissolved into particles that drifted away like dust. His phone rang. General Sarah Chen's voice was tight with controlled panic. Marcus, get to the bunker under Parliament now. Bring everything you have on the aliens. What's happening? They're not trying to kill us all at once. They're picking off our government buildings, military bases, communication centers. They want to break our ability to organize, not wipe us out completely. Marcus grabbed his research and ran. In the streets, people stood staring up at the impossible sight above them. The alien ship had opened like a flower of metal and light. Smaller craft poured out of it like angry bees, each one the size of a fighter jet, but moving with impossible grace. By the time Marcus reached the underground bunker, chaos had taken hold. Military officers shouted orders while politicians demanded answers no one could give. Sarah found him in the crowd and pulled him aside. "It's happening all over the world," she said. "New York, Beijing, Moscow, Delhi. They're hitting every major capital simultaneously. But Marcus, there's something strange about their attack pattern." She led him to a computer terminal showing a global map. Red dots marked where the aliens had struck. "Look at what they're not hitting," Sarah continued. "Hospitals, schools, residential areas, farms. They're being surgical, like they want to keep the infrastructure and population intact." Marcus studied the map. "They still want to relocate us. This isn't conquest, it's pacification." "That's what I thought too. Until this." Sarah pulled up another screen. "We intercepted this transmission between their ships 20 minutes ago." The alien voices were different from Ambassador Cathara's musical tones. These were harsh, industrial, efficient. Resistance level minimal as expected. Primary mining sites secured. Population control proceeding within normal parameters. Confirmed. The quantum crystalline deposits beneath the third continent are even larger than projected. Full extraction will require complete surface clearing. Understood. How long until the humans accept relocation? Historical data suggest between 72 and 96 hours for complete psychological breakdown. The pattern is consistent across all previous operations. Marcus felt sick. They've done this before. Exactly this. How many times? Sarah's jaw was tight. I've been trying to figure that out. I got in touch with some people who know how to dig deeper into their databases than your university computers allow. She nodded toward a corner where two people Marcus didn't recognize were working frantically at advanced computer equipment. One was a young woman with bright purple hair, the other a middle-aged man with military tattoos. Rachel Kim, formerly of NASA's Deep Space Monitoring Project, Sarah said, and Tony Martinez, who used to do things for the government that officially never happened. They've been hacking into alien data streams. Rachel looked up from her screen. "Dr. Webb." "Perfect timing. You need to see this." Marcus hurried over. Rachel's screen showed what looked like a three-dimensional star map, but with time flowing backward. "I managed to crack their historical database," Rachel explained. "Watch this." The map began to replay the last 1,000 years of galactic history from the aliens' perspective. Marcus watched species after species make contact with the hegemony. Each time the pattern was identical. Peaceful first contact, generous offers of relocation, brief resistance. Then, nothing. 47 species, Tony said grimly. All of them gone. But here's the kicker. Look at what happened to their home planets afterward. The map shifted to show the current state of those worlds. Every single one had been strip-mined down to the core. The planets were hollow shells, their resources completely extracted. They're not an interstellar empire, Marcus realized. They're parasites. They find worlds with valuable resources, convince the inhabitants to leave, then eat the planet alive. Gets worse, Rachel said. Look at Earth's geological survey from their perspective. She pulled up another display. Marcus's blood went cold. The quantum crystalline substrates under our continents aren't just valuable. They're the largest deposit in known space. Our entire planet is sitting on top of the galactic equivalent of an oil field. An explosion shook the bunker. Emergency lights flickered. They're getting impatient, Sarah said. Historical pattern says we should have broken by now. Marcus was studying the alien historical files. Sarah, look at this. Every species they conquered had similar psychological profiles. Hierarchical societies, clear command structures, predictable behavioral patterns. When their governments fell, the species fell. So humans might be different. We don't have one world government. We're chaotic, unpredictable. Even when our leaders fall, we don't necessarily follow orders. As if to prove his point, reports began flooding in from around the world. Military units that should have been destroyed were regrouping in the countryside. Citizens were ignoring government orders to remain calm, and were instead forming their own resistance groups. In some places, local populations were actually fighting back against the alien craft with hunting rifles and improvised explosives. This is insane, one of the military officers said, listening to radio reports. Civilians in Texas are shooting at alien aircraft with deer rifles. A group of farmers in Kansas just took down a scout ship with a modified crop duster and some homemade explosives. Tony looked up from his computer. It's working too. The aliens are actually taking casualties. Look at this intercepted communication. Another alien voice, this one with notes of confusion. Human resistance patterns do not match any known psychological profile. Expected capitulation has not occurred. Request immediate strategic reassessment. Negative. Continue standard pacification protocol. No species has ever sustained resistance beyond 96 hours. Sir, they are now at hour 87 and resistance is actually increasing. Some human groups are reverse engineering our technology. This is unprecedented. Marcus felt something he hadn't experienced in days. Hope. They don't understand us, he said. Every species they've conquered before was rational, predictable. Humans are neither. Sarah was listening to radio chatter from around the world. It's true. Look at this. A group of engineers in Mumbai just figured out how to disrupt their energy weapons using car batteries and copper wire. A teenager in Brazil hacked into one of their communication networks using a gaming computer. This is the kind of insane improvisation that would never occur to a logical, organized species. The bunker shook again, but this time it felt different. Less controlled. They're getting frustrated, Marcus realized. This isn't going according to their plan. Rachel's equipment suddenly lit up with activity. Guys, I'm picking up a massive communication burst between all their ships. Something big is happening. The transmission was clear enough to understand, and what they heard made everyone in the bunker go quiet. This is Fleet Commander Zethkri to all vessels. The human pacification operation has exceeded acceptable parameters. Psychological warfare has failed. The species shows unprecedented resistance to standard control methods. I am therefore authorizing Protocol 7. Sir, Protocol 7 has not been used in over 600 years. Are you certain? These humans are not behaving like any species we have encountered. They grow more dangerous under pressure, not less. Their chaotic nature appears to be an adaptive advantage, not a weakness. We can no longer treat this as a standard relocation operation. Understood, sir. Switching to full military conquest protocols. All restrictions on civilian targets are now lifted. The transmission ended. Sarah looked around the bunker at the faces of everyone who had heard it. Well, she said quietly, I guess we're not being relocated anymore. Marcus stared at the screens showing the alien fleet above. The ships were changing again, their configurations shifting from surgical pacification tools to something much more sinister. No, he said. Now we're at war. Outside, the first sounds of true battle began to echo across the London sky. The mask came off completely on the fourth day. Dr. Marcus Webb watched from the bunker's monitors as the alien ships transformed above London. What had once been sleek, beautiful vessels now revealed their true nature. Massive weapons deployed from hidden compartments. Hull plating shifted to expose targeting systems that hummed with deadly energy. The ships no longer looked like instruments of peace. They looked like what they had always been, tools of war. My God, whispered Prime Minister Harrison, staring at the screens. How long have they been lying to us? Probably since the moment they arrived, General Sarah Chen replied. She was studying tactical displays that showed similar transformations happening over every major city on Earth. The question is, why did they bother with the deception at all? Marcus had been thinking about that same question. Because it's always worked before, he said. Look at their pattern. They've been using the same playbook for 1,000 years. Arrive peacefully, make generous offers, wait for surrender, then harvest the planet. They've never had to actually fight a war. Rachel Kim looked up from her computer station. That's not entirely true. I found records of 3 species that initially resisted, but they all surrendered within days once the real weapons came out. What made them give up? Sarah asked. Rachel's face was grim. The aliens demonstrated their power by destroying entire cities. Complete annihilation. The surviving population surrendered immediately to prevent further losses. As if summoned by their conversation, the first demonstration began. The alien ship over London turned its attention to the Thames River. A beam of coherent energy, wider than a city block, lanced down from the vessel. Where it touched the water, the Thames simply ceased to exist. Not evaporated, erased. For a stretch of nearly a mile, there was nothing but a dry riverbed and the faint shimmer of disturbed air. Similar demonstrations occurred simultaneously around the world. Sydney Harbor vanished. Lake Michigan disappeared for 10 miles. The Sahara Desert gained a perfectly circular crater 50 miles wide and so deep, no one could see the bottom. The message was clear. Surrender now or watch your world be deleted piece by piece. But humanity's response was not what the aliens expected. "Sir," one of the military communications officers called out, "we're getting reports from around the world. The demonstrations? They're having the opposite effect." Sarah moved to listen to the radio chatter. What she heard made her smile for the first time in days. "This is Bravo Company, Australian SAS. We just watched them erase Sydney Harbor. We're moving to attack position. If they can do that to water, we need to stop them before they do it to people. Texas National Guard here. They want to scare us? We've seen tornadoes that were scarier. Moving to engage the Houston vessel. Moscow Rapid Response Unit. We see their big weapon. We also see they need 30 seconds to charge it between shots. That is 30 seconds of vulnerability. Beginning assault in 3 minutes. Marcus stared at the communications board in amazement. They're not surrendering. They're getting angry. It's the human spite response, Sarah said, grinning fiercely. Threaten a human and our first instinct isn't to surrender. It's to punch back twice as hard. Above them, the first human counterattacks began. They were pathetic by any reasonable measure. Human weapons were primitive compared to alien technology. Fighter jets that moved like toys compared to alien craft. Missiles that exploded harmlessly against energy shields. Tank rounds that bounced off hull plating like raindrops. But something unexpected happened. I'm detecting system fluctuations in the London vessel, Rachel reported, studying her instruments with growing excitement. The constant barrage is causing their shields to cycle. It shouldn't be possible with our weapons, but they designed their shields to handle organized, logical attacks, Marcus realized. Not chaotic human stupidity. The proof came from Brazil, where a group of civilian engineers had done something no military tactician would ever consider. They'd loaded a crop dusting plane with fireworks, thousands and thousands of cheap fireworks, and flown it directly into an alien ship's ventilation intake. The explosion was tiny. The damage should have been negligible. Instead, the alien ship's entire electrical system went haywire. Lights flickered. Weapon systems powered down. The ship actually lurched in the air before its crew could regain control. How is that possible? Asked one of the military advisors. Tony Martinez, the former government operative, was laughing as he monitored alien communications. Listen to this, he said, patching through a frantic alien transmission. Fleet Command, this is Scout 7. We have suffered multiple systems failures following an attack by, I cannot properly translate this, a flying machine filled with explosive celebration devices? Repeat, Scout 7, did you say celebration devices? Affirmative. Small, colorful explosives typically used for festivals. Somehow they created a cascade failure in our shield harmonics. The humans appear to be using weapons that our defensive systems were never designed to counter. Marcus was studying the technical readouts. Their shields are calibrated for energy weapons and kinetic projectiles. But fireworks produce electromagnetic pulses, random frequencies, thermal blooms. It's complete chaos. Their computer systems can't process that much random input at once. So our primitive technology is actually an advantage? Sarah asked. More than that, Marcus said, his excitement growing. Their entire civilization is based on order, predictability, logical progression. They've optimized everything for efficiency and control. But humans, we're the opposite. We're chaos incarnate. The evidence kept mounting. In Japan, a group of teenagers defeated an alien patrol unit using modified gaming equipment that interfered with their navigation systems. In Scotland, farmers discovered that bagpipe music played at certain frequencies could disrupt alien communication networks. In Russia, a vodka distillery had accidentally created a chemical compound that ate through alien hull metal when they tried to hide their alcohol from the invaders. But the aliens weren't helpless. They were learning too. New transmission from the fleet, Rachel announced. They're requesting reinforcements. The message was clear and cold. Human resistance patterns indicate fundamental miscalculation in species assessment. Request immediate deployment of Legion-class vessels and full military protocols. This is no longer a relocation operation. Recommend reclassification to Category 5 extinction event. The bunker went quiet. Extinction event? Whispered the Prime Minister. Marcus felt the cold return to his stomach. They're going to stop trying to preserve us. No more surgical strikes, no more attempts at capture. They're going to try to wipe us out completely. How long until the reinforcements arrive? Sarah asked. Rachel checked her calculations. Based on their fleet positions, maybe 6 days. 6 days to what? Surrender and hope they change their minds? Marcus was studying the alien cultural files again. No, look at this. Once they classify a species as an extinction event, they don't change their minds, ever. They'll glass the entire planet rather than risk the species spreading to other worlds. So we're dead either way, someone said. Maybe not, Marcus said slowly. Look at what we've accomplished in just 4 days. We've forced them to call for reinforcements. We've damaged their ships with technology they consider primitive. We've survived longer than any species in their recorded history. Sarah caught on to his thinking. You're saying we can win. I'm saying we're already winning. They expected us to surrender by day 3. It's day 4 and we're fighting harder than ever. Every hour we survive is an hour we learn more about how to hurt them. And every hour they're stuck here is an hour they're not strip mining our planet. As if to prove his point, reports began flooding in from around the world. The human counteroffensive was growing more sophisticated by the hour. Military units were adapting alien technology faster than should have been possible. Civilian hackers were breaking into alien computer systems. Scientists were reverse engineering captured equipment and finding ways to improve on it. There's something else, Rachel said, studying new data feeds. Their reinforcement request was denied. Everyone turned to look at her. The Hegemony High Command refused to send additional ships. They said, and I quote, "No single primitive species justifies the deployment of a full legion. Contain the situation with existing resources." Sarah smiled coldly. They're underestimating us again. Marcus nodded. And that might be the mistake that saves us all. Outside, the war entered its second phase. The aliens had dropped their masks completely now, revealing themselves as the predators they had always been. But humanity had dropped its masks too, revealing something the galaxy had never seen before. A species that became more dangerous the more threatened it became. The real war was just beginning. The war began in earnest on day 7, and it was like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. Dr. Marcus Webb stood in the remains of Cambridge University, studying the alien fighter craft that had crashed into the library 3 hours earlier. The ship was still smoking, its hull cracked open like an egg. Inside, he could see the pilot, a being with gray skin and too many arms, very dead. How did the students bring this down? He asked Lieutenant Collins, the young soldier assigned to his research team. Fishing net and a motorcycle, Collins replied with a straight face. They threw the net into its propulsion intake while it was flying low. Then when it crashed, Jimmy Martinez, he's an engineering student, rammed it with his bike. Bike was loaded with homemade explosives. Marcus shook his head in amazement. A week ago, these had been ordinary university students worried about exams and dating. Now they were successfully hunting alien aircraft with improvised weapons. His phone buzzed. General Sarah Chen's voice was tense but excited. Marcus, get to London. We've got something big. An hour later, Marcus stood in the ruins of Westminster, staring at the most impossible sight of his life. The alien mothership that had hovered over London for a week was gone. In its place was a massive crater and scattered debris that still glowed with alien energy. How? Was all he could manage. Sarah pointed to a group of people standing near what used to be Big Ben. Meet the team that just changed the course of human history. The group was an odd mix. A taxi driver named Bob, a quantum physics professor named Dr. Anaya Patel, a Royal Engineer Sergeant named Williams, a 15-year-old hacker who went by Pixel, and standing in the middle of them, covered in soot but grinning wildly, was Rachel Kim. We didn't destroy it, Rachel explained. We hijacked it. You what? Dr. Patel stepped forward. The ship's computer systems are quantum-based, but they use binary logic trees for decision-making. Very sophisticated, but ultimately predictable. Pixel here found a way to inject chaos algorithms into their system. The teenager blushed. It wasn't that hard. I just fed their computer a bunch of random memes and internet videos. Their AI couldn't process the illogical nature of human humor. It caused a cascade failure. Bob, the taxi driver, chimed in. Once their computers went down, Sergeant Williams used his engineering training to overload their power systems. Simple bit of sabotage, really. Simple? Marcus stared at them. You hijacked an alien starship with memes and taxicab knowledge? Well, when you put it that way, it sounds mad, Bob said cheerfully. but the implications were staggering. Word of London's success spread instantly across the globe, and the results were immediate. Similar improvised attacks began happening everywhere. In Tokyo, a group of anime fans discovered that certain frequencies of J-pop music interfered with alien neural implants, causing their pilots to hallucinate. In New York, construction workers brought down 3 alien ships by dropping the Brooklyn Bridge on them. A controlled demolition that took 6 months to plan, but was executed in 6 minutes. In Mumbai, street children were using slingshots and marbles to short-circuit alien sensors, then directing military strikes with deadly accuracy. But the aliens were adapting too. New intelligence, Sarah said, pulling up a holographic display. They've stopped trying to preserve our infrastructure. The orders came down from their high command 6 hours ago. Scorched Earth protocol. If they can't control us, they'll make sure no one can. Marcus studied the tactical displays. Alien reinforcements were arriving. Not the massive fleet they'd requested, but a steady stream of ships equipped specifically for planetary destruction rather than conquest. How long do we have? Their current rate of bombardment? Maybe 2 weeks before the planet becomes uninhabitable. That should have been the end of human resistance. Any rational species would have surrendered at that point. But humans, Marcus was learning, were fundamentally irrational. Instead of giving up, they got creative. The first breakthrough came from an unexpected source, a group of Australian Aboriginal elders working with NASA engineers. They had discovered that the songlines, the ancient paths across the Australian continent described in Aboriginal mythology, corresponded exactly to underground mineral formations that interfered with alien sensors. It's like our ancestors knew, explained Dr. William Namatjira, a physicist and traditional landowner. The songlines map the quantum resonance patterns in the Earth itself. If we can amplify those patterns, within days similar discoveries were being made around the world. Ancient stone circles in Britain, ley lines in Ireland, dragon paths in China, all of them mapped to natural quantum phenomena that could disrupt alien technology. But the real game changer came from Dr. Patel's team in London. We've cracked it, she announced during a global video conference. We know why humans are different from every other species the aliens have conquered. She pulled up brain scans, human brains compared to reconstructed alien neural patterns. Every species they've defeated has ordered predictable thought patterns. Linear logic, hierarchical decision-making, rational responses to stimuli. But look at human neural activity. The human brain scans were chaos. Millions of connections firing in patterns that seemed random. Thoughts jumping between topics without logical progression, creative leaps that made no mathematical sense. We're not broken, Dr. Patel continued. We're anti-logical. Our brains literally evolved to be unpredictable. It's why we create art, why we tell jokes, why we fall in love with the wrong people, and it's why the aliens can't defeat us. Marcus felt pieces clicking together. Their entire strategy depends on predicting behavior. But you can't predict chaos, exactly. And more than that, we're getting better at being chaotic. Every day of this war, humans are becoming more unpredictable, more creative, more unified in our randomness. The evidence was everywhere. Military units around the world were abandoning standard tactics in favor of approaches that no war college would ever teach. The Australian military had weaponized drop bears. Yes, drop bears, the fictional creatures from tourist jokes. By training actual koalas to drop alien technology onto unsuspecting patrols. The Canadian military had discovered that maple syrup, when mixed with certain household chemicals, could eat through alien hull metal faster than military-grade acid. In Finland, a group of Nokia engineers had built a communication network using old Nokia phones that was completely invisible to alien sensors because it was too primitive for their detection systems to recognize as technology. It's working, Sarah reported during their daily briefing. Global alien casualties are up 300% in the last week. Their reinforcement requests are being denied more frequently, and intelligence suggests that several member species of the hegemony are questioning whether this operation is worth the cost. But Marcus was worried about something else. What happens when we win? If we win? What do you mean? Marcus pulled up the galactic star charts. Think about it. We've just proven that chaotic, unpredictable species can defeat organized, logical ones. What does that mean for the rest of the galaxy? The implications were staggering. If humanity survived this war, they wouldn't just be another species among many. They would be proof that the entire galactic order was built on a false foundation. The other species they conquered, Marcus continued. The ones who were relocated and disappeared. What if they weren't killed? What if they were just contained, locked away somewhere? Rachel looked up from her computer. Actually, I've been tracking some weird energy signatures from the outer system. Massive structures that don't match any known alien technology patterns. Almost like prisons, Marcus finished. The room went quiet. If those species are still alive, Sarah said slowly, and if they learn that it's possible to fight back, Marcus nodded grimly. Then this isn't just about Earth anymore. This is about the future of galactic civilization. Outside, the war raged on. Humans continued to fight with impossible creativity, turning everything from kitchen utensils to children's toys into weapons of resistance. The aliens continued their bombardment, but with growing desperation rather than confident superiority. Both sides were evolving, adapting, learning, but only one side was learning how to embrace chaos as a strength rather than a weakness. The war that had begun as a simple conquest was becoming something much larger, a fundamental challenge to the nature of power in the galaxy itself. 6 months after the first ships appeared in Earth's sky, Dr. Marcus Webb stood on the observation deck of what had once been the International Space Station. Now it was something else entirely. A hybrid of human engineering and captured alien technology that shouldn't have been possible, but somehow worked perfectly. Through the reinforced windows, he could see the battle raging across the solar system. Human ships, if they could still be called ships, danced between alien formations like schools of fish, each one different, each one built from whatever materials and ideas their crews could find. Some were converted cargo ships bristling with improvised weapons. Others were alien craft that had been captured and modified beyond all recognition. "Status report," General Sarah Chen said, floating up beside him. In the low gravity, her gray hair moved like a silver cloud around her head. "Better than anyone expected," Marcus replied. "The hegemony forces are down to 60% of their original strength. 3 of their member species have formally withdrawn from the operation, and intelligence suggests the others are considering following suit. But that wasn't the most important news, and they both knew it." "The others?" Marcus smiled. 47 liberation fleets and counting. Every species the hegemony claimed to have relocated over the past 1,000 years. They weren't dead, they were imprisoned on monitoring stations throughout the galaxy. When our broadcast reached them, the broadcast had been humanity's greatest weapon. Not a message of war, but a simple transmission showing how humans had learned to fight back. Proof that the seemingly omnipotent hegemony could be challenged, could be beaten, could be made to bleed. The response had been immediate and overwhelming. Rachel Kim's voice crackled over the communication system. "Marcus, Sarah, get down to the command center. We're getting reports from the Tau Ceti system." They floated down through the corridors of the station, past rooms where human children worked alongside alien refugees, where former enemies collaborated on technologies that neither species could have developed alone. The war had changed everyone. In the command center, the main screen showed a tactical display of the galaxy. Red dots marked hegemony positions, blue showed human forces, and a growing constellation of green represented the liberated species. "The Valdari just broke free from their containment facility," Rachel reported excitedly. "That makes 23 species that have successfully revolted in the last month alone. The hegemony is fighting wars on 47 different fronts now." Dr. Anaya Patel looked up from her research station. "It's not sustainable for them. Their entire military doctrine was based on quick conquests of isolated species. They've never had to fight multiple opponents simultaneously." Marcus studied the patterns on the screen. "They're fragmenting. Look at these fleet movements. The different member species aren't coordinating anymore. The Zephyrians are retreating to their core worlds. The Keth Mori are trying to negotiate separate peace treaties. And the best part," Tony Martinez added from his intelligence station, "is that they're all blaming each other for the human problem. Their alliance is falling apart from the inside." But Marcus knew it wasn't that simple. The war had changed humanity too in ways they were only beginning to understand. "Show me the Earth feeds," he said. The screen switched to show images from around the world. What Marcus saw would have been impossible to imagine a year ago. In the ruins of cities, humans were building structures that blended architecture with alien technology in ways that created entirely new forms of art. Children played games that incorporated quantum mathematics and chaos theory as naturally as hopscotch. Adults worked alongside rescued alien prisoners, their combined knowledge creating innovations that surpassed anything either species had achieved alone. "We're not the same species we were 6 months ago," Marcus said quietly. Sarah nodded. "The war didn't just teach us to fight. It taught us to think differently, to be more than we were." It was true. The constant pressure of surviving against impossible odds had pushed human creativity to new levels. More importantly, it had forced humans to truly work together for the first time in their history. The old divisions, nation against nation, ideology against ideology, had become meaningless when faced with extinction. "Incoming transmission from Admiral Torres," Rachel announced. Admiral Maria Torres had been a cargo ship captain 6 months ago. Now she commanded the largest human fleet in space, a collection of converted freighters, alien prizes, and impossible hybrid vessels that somehow worked together like a symphony of controlled chaos. "Command, this is Torres. We've made contact with the Hegemony Core fleet at the Galactic Center. They're requesting negotiations." The command center went silent. "Negotiations?" Sarah asked. Torres' voice carried a note of grim satisfaction. "Unconditional surrender, actually. They want to discuss terms." Marcus felt a strange mix of triumph and unease. "What kind of terms?" "Full withdrawal from all contested systems. Release of all imprisoned species. Reparations for damages and—" Torres paused. "Recognition of humanity as the new galactic mediating authority." The implications hit Marcus like a physical blow. They want us to become them, to take over their role as the dominant galactic power. "Which we absolutely cannot do," Dr. Patel said immediately. "The whole point was that centralized galactic authority is wrong, regardless of who's in charge." Sarah was studying the tactical displays. "We don't have to accept their framework. We can write our own terms." Over the next several days, representatives from dozens of species gathered at the newly constructed conference station orbiting Earth. The negotiations were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Instead of the rigid hierarchical discussions the hegemony was used to, the humans insisted on a circular table where every species had equal voice. Marcus found himself serving as humanity's chief negotiator, a role he'd never wanted but couldn't avoid. Across the table sat Ambassador Kythera, the Zephyrian who had started it all with her generous offer of relocation. She looked smaller now, her blue skin pale and her musical voice subdued. "Your terms are unprecedented," she said. "Good," Marcus replied. The precedent was the problem. The human proposal was radical. Complete dissolution of the hegemony, return of all conquered territories to their original inhabitants, and the establishment of a loose confederation based on cooperation rather than domination. No single species would have authority over others. Conflicts would be resolved through mediation rather than force. "It will never work," Kythera protested. "Chaos cannot govern the galaxy. Order, structure, hierarchy, these are necessary for civilization." Marcus smiled. 6 months ago you told us the same thing about Earth. How did that work out for you?" But the real breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Pixel, the teenage hacker who had helped bring down the first alien ship, had been working with rescued prisoners from the destroyed species. "Dr. Webb," she said excitedly, "you need to see this. The species that were supposedly extinct? They weren't just imprisoned, they were studied. The hegemony has detailed psychological profiles of thousands of different forms of intelligence." She pulled up the data on the main screen. "Look at this pattern. Every species they successfully conquered had similar neural structures. Ordered thinking, hierarchical social systems, predictable responses to authority. But the species that gave them trouble—" Marcus studied the profiles. "They all show chaotic thinking patterns. Like humans." "Exactly. The hegemony didn't just conquer the galaxy. They specifically targeted and eliminated chaotic species while preserving ordered ones. They've been artificially selecting for compliance for 1,000 years. The implications were staggering. The hegemony hadn't just been an empire. It had been a selective breeding program for the entire galaxy, eliminating diversity of thought and creativity in favor of order and control. That's why they couldn't understand us, Marcus realized. They'd spent centuries eliminating every species that thought like we do. The negotiations took on a new urgency. This wasn't just about ending a war. It was about preventing the galaxy from sliding back into artificial homogeneity. 3 weeks later, the Treaty of Earth was signed. The hegemony was dissolved. Imprisoned species were freed and their homeworlds restored. Most importantly, a new principle was established. Diversity of thought was to be protected and encouraged, not eliminated. Marcus stood again on the observation deck, watching as ships from dozens of species departed for their home systems. Earth's sky was busy with traffic, not invaders this time, but visitors, traders, refugees seeking new homes, and explorers eager to learn from the species that had changed the galaxy. Sarah joined him at the window. Any regrets? Marcus thought about it. Humanity would never be the same. They'd been forced to grow up, to become something greater than they had been. The old Earth of national boundaries and petty conflicts was gone forever. No, he said finally. We're not the species we were. But maybe that's not a bad thing.